Hey everybody, it's David, and this is a topic that I hope sparks some discussion within the vinyl community about great opening tracks from albums. This idea was inspired by someone that I follow on Instagram that goes by the name Myonal, and she was sharing the Led Zeppelin II album, which just turned 50, and she went on to say that Whole Lotta Love was one of the greatest opening tracks from an album of all time. And it got me thinking, what are some other great opening tracks from other albums? And so I've pulled 20 albums from my collection. I'm going to share 10 today. And hopefully this will, again, spark some discussion amongst other members of the VC. And this turns into a thread. So to kick things off, what better way to start off than with the album that inspired this topic, and that is Led Zeppelin II. It came out in '69, and the opening track is Whole Lotta Love. And that opening riff from Jimmy Page is just classic. The it kicks off with that, and then John Paul Jones comes in on the bass. They do it a third time, and that's when Robert Plant's vocals kick in. They do a verse, and then all of a sudden John Bonham just kicks in with that. Just a classic opening for an album, and one of my favorites by Led Zeppelin. And so, starting things off, we have Whole Lotta Love from Led Zeppelin II. Next, we have an album from the Beach Boys, and this is their album Pet Sounds, and the opening track from this album is Wouldn't It Be Nice. This is one of those songs that kind of went against the grain. You didn't hear a lot of some of the instruments featured in this album on rock albums. You had like the 12-string guitar, you had horns, you had accordion, and then you had Brian Wilson's Wall of Sound. Just an excellent album opener, and one that really kind of put the Beach Boys back on the map and taking more serious as a rock group. Next we have ELO, and this is their album Out of the Blue, and the opening track from this album is Turn to Stone. This is just a fun album opener. It kind of fades in with this kind of driving rhythm on the guitar. It's got what sounds like a plane or something kind of in the background. It just kind of really swells up, and then the vocals kick in with Jeff Lynne's overdubbed harmonies. Again, just an excellent album opener from ELO, and this is Out of the Blue with the opening track being Turn to Stone. Next, we have a blues artist, and this is Albert King, and this is his album Born Under a Bad Sign. This came out in 1967, and the opening track is the title of the album. It was originally written by Booker T. Jones, and this was kind of one of those songs and albums that was a crossover. This really put blues artists kind of in the realms of rock and roll artists. You had people or bands like Cream that covered this song just a year later after this was released. Just an excellent song that was done by Albert King, and one of his greatest in my opinion. Alright, next up, speaking of Cream, we have their album Wheels of Fire, and this album, kicks off with the track White Room. It has Eric Clapton with his classic woman tone. You've got Jack Bruce on bass, and then it has this kind of a tribal drum sound from Ginger Baker, and then it kicks into the verse, and it's just a powerful opening to a wonderful album from Cream, and one of my favorites. Alright, next, the Jimi Hendrix Experience, Are You Experienced? And this opens up with the classic Purple Haze. This one was just a fun song because it opens up with that kind of dissonant guitar sound. Listen to that. Not really a good chord, I guess, but he comes in with that. And then just launches into those psychedelic lyrics. Just an excellent album opener, and one of my favorites from Jimi Hendrix. Next up, we have Changes from the album Hunky Dory. Changes is a song that kind of starts off sounding like a lounge type song with, you know, David Bowie just hitting some chords on the piano. He starts singing over those chords, and then it just kicks in with that dun 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 with the horns and everything, and then it just goes on later to feature backing vocals from John Lennon. Just a fun song and a great opener to one of my favorite albums from David Bowie. This is Hunky Dory with the opener, Changes. Next we have Ram from Paul McCartney, and the opening track for this album is Too Many People. Again, another song that starts off with kind of a driving guitar. Paul comes in with some really heavily reverb vocals, and then it just kicks in with the full band and just sets the tone for the rest of the album. Just a great opener, great song from this album, and this is one of my favorite albums from Paul McCartney, and that's Ram with the opening track, Too Many People. Right, moving along, number 9, we have The Who, and this is their album Who's Next with the opening track, Baba O'Riley, oftentimes confused as being called Teenage Wasteland. This is a song that kicks off with that synth loop that Pete Townsend constructed. And I read that he was really going to use that song off for his Lifehouse project, but it never took off, so they decided to use it for this album. And the way Pete Townsend constructed that was that he had a synthesizer, and he input somehow what he thought were the traits and personalities of one of his idols, and that's Meher Baba. And the results he got is what we hear in the opening synth loop from Baba O'Riley. This is a great song. This is a great album from start to finish. You've heard this song used in some of the CSI TV shows, but just a fun song, interesting way to start off an album, and one that's really kind of a pioneer in its early beginnings. So this is The Who's Next, The Who's Next, and the opening track is Baba O'Riley. And the last album I'm going to share is from the Rolling Stones. This one also turned 50 this year, and this is Let It Bleed, and the opening track is one of my favorites by Rolling Stones, and that's Gimme Shelter. Hey, cat. And it just starts off with Keith Moon playing that kind of guitar riff, and then it kicks into that vocal in the background, and then Mick Jagger and the rest of the band just comes in, and the guns blazing, and it turns into a really heavy rocker. So this is Rolling Stones and Let It Bleed. Well, that's going to do it for this video. What are some of your favorite album tracks that open up an album? I'd love to hear what you have to say. You can leave a comment down below in the comment section, or better yet, film your own video. I'd love to hear what you have to share and see what you have to share. But until next time, that's going to do it for this video, and take care. Thanks.